Have you ever argued with someone so toxic and unreasonable that you suddenly stopped and asked yourself, wait, am I the one with the problem here? They twist your words. They play the victim. And what's your gut reaction? You explain more. You bring up more evidence. You even argue for hours just to prove you're right. But let's be honest, have you ever actually won? Or do you just end up completely drained while the person who caused the whole mess doesn't seem fazed at all? Here's the hard truth. You're not exhausted because you're bad at arguing. You're exhausted because you're trying to use logic in a conversation that stopped following logic a long time ago. Smart people figure this out early. You'll rarely see them raise their voice. Not because they're weak or can't fight back. So what do they actually do to handle toxic people while still staying in control? I'm Dex. Today we're breaking down 7 tactics smart people use to shut down toxic people. And here's a heads up. None of these tactics involve just arguing until you win. Method 1. React with total indifference. Be honest, how many times have you promised yourself, I'm going to let it go, I'm not going to care? But then one snide little comment comes your way, and suddenly all the blood in your body rushes straight to your head? You're fuming, your face turns red, and you rush to explain yourself or argue back no matter what. And guess who's happiest about that? Them, the toxic person. Don't be surprised. Neurologically speaking, people who thrive on drama or manipulation are actually addicted to a free stimulant, your emotional reaction. Every time you fall for it, get angry or snap back, their brain floods with dopamine. It's that feeling of satisfaction, of having the upper hand, of somehow having total control over you. The more you struggle, the more excited they get. So the toxic cycle just keeps repeating itself like a hard habit to break. Smart people spot this trap early on. They understand that trying to argue with someone addicted to drama is like pouring gasoline on a fire that's already burning. Instead, they choose a response that leaves the other person completely stunned. They become a rock. In psychology, this technique is called the gray rock method. Sounds boring just from the name, right? That's exactly the point. The goal is to become as dull, flat, and emotionless as a rock on the side of the road. When they start throwing out provocations, instead of a long emotional rant full of frustration, smart people relax their facial muscles, keep a blank expression, and use the shortest responses possible. Don't engage. Just calmly let out a few words like, oh, okay, I hear you, or maybe. They don't judge, they don't argue back, but they absolutely do not agree either. You're basically playing a wall with no windows for them to throw rocks at. Why does this seemingly harsh and dull approach hit so hard? Behavioral science calls this extinction. It's like when you're excitedly telling a hilarious joke, but the friend next to you just stares at you with a blank face. You'd feel deflated, shut your mouth, and lose all interest in continuing. The game of emotional manipulation works exactly the same way. When you completely freeze your emotional reactions, the conversation suddenly becomes an incredibly boring disaster for them. No more excitement, no more power to hold on to, and pretty soon they'll get bored and back off on their own. Smart people never win a fight by yelling louder or being meaner. They win because they know how to completely cut off the toxic person's power source, and most importantly, they keep their own nervous system intact for things that actually matter. Method 2. No explaining, no justifying. Think back for a second. How many times have you been about to say no to an invitation, but because you didn't want to seem rude, you tried to come up with some long, drawn-out explanation instead? And then boom, just a few minutes later you got talked in circles and ended up reluctantly saying yes anyway. That feeling is the worst, right? Welcome to a classic trap in behavioral psychology called JADE. It stands for 4 words: justify, argue, defend, and explain. Listen, when you're dealing with someone who loves control or manipulation, the more you try to explain yourself, the more ammunition you're handing them to shoot back at you. With a normal person, they listen to your reason to understand your boundary. But with a toxic person, wake up, they're only listening so they can pick it apart. Dig for holes in your logic and turn it against you. It's exactly like putting yourself on trial. The more evidence you offer in your own defense, the more they have to twist around and use against you. Here's a real example. You turn down a night out and say, oh, I can't make it this weekend, work's been crazy with deadlines and I'm not feeling well either. Right away, the other person grabs onto that excuse to attack. What do you mean busy? I literally saw you check in at a coffee shop yesterday. Just come for a bit. If you're tired, you can sit in a corner and rest. Or do you just not care about your friends? See that? From one simple no, you suddenly become the bad guy just because you gave away too much information. Smart people never fall into this trap. They fully understand one core rule. A no doesn't need a report attached to it. When they need to say no, they use short, plain statements that end with a cold, hard period. No, because, no, the reason is. None of that here. They look you in the eye and say, I can't make it this weekend. And if the other person keeps pushing and prying, why not? Are you busy or something? Then what? A smart person doesn't flinch or get pulled into explaining themselves. They stay completely calm and repeat the exact same message, politely but firmly. I've got something going on this weekend and can't make it. Hope everyone has a great time. They cut off the entire information supply. There's no opening left for the other person to dig into. By doing this, they're sending a clear message. My decision is a done deal, not a rough draft open for debate or waiting on your approval. Trust me, you never need anyone's permission to say no to your own life. Method 3. Limit your exposure time. Have you ever been stuck in this nightmare? Trapped in a never-ending conversation with someone who opens their mouth and all that comes out is complaining. Like, at first you just meant to be nice and let them vent for a few minutes, right? But then, boom, an hour goes by and you're still sitting there, your head is pounding and you're completely drained. Trust me, I know that feeling all too well. Psychology calls this emotional regulation depletion. Here's the simple version. Your mental energy each day is like a limited budget. Every minute you spend forcing yourself to nod along, trying to look sympathetic, and holding back your frustration at endless complaints, that's a big withdrawal from your energy account. Listening out of responsibility is one thing, but letting someone else drain your entire mental budget is a completely different story. That's why smart people are so good at protecting their personal boundaries. They absolutely refuse to turn themselves into a free therapy hotline, and they don't waste their breath trying to convince the other person to stop complaining either. Instead, they take control with a really smart trick: time boxing. Here's what works for me. When I know I'm about to face a chronic complainer, I hit them first with a big smile. Hey, I'd love to hear you out, but just so you know, I've only got 10 minutes, then I've got to run. And here's the part that really matters. Once those 10 minutes are up, you stand up and leave. No lingering, no waiting to hear just one more sentence. Just stand up, give a pat on the shoulder, or wrap up the call with a light, easy tone. Oh no, that's already 10 minutes. I've got to go handle something. Let's catch up another time. Doing this, you stay completely polite. You avoid any back and forth arguing, and most importantly, you keep 100% of your mental capacity intact for the things in your life that actually deserve it. Put your own energy first, guys. Method 4. Redirect straight to solutions. Have you ever had to sit and listen to someone chew on the exact same problem over and over for months, maybe years? The problem's still sitting there, they never bother fixing it. All they really want is a place to dump their emotions. From a psychological standpoint, replaying the same sad story over and over is really just a way of soothing themselves and getting attention, not actually thinking about a real solution. This is where you get stuck. Go along with it and you become an accomplice. Tell them to just calm down, and they immediately get offended, decide you don't care, and turn around and attack you instead. Smart people are sharp enough to dodge this whole drama. Instead of arguing or forcing themselves to sympathize, they pull off a sharp but clear-headed move. They force the other person to switch into problem-solving mode. They let themselves listen for the first minute or two while the other person vents. Then, with a totally calm face and a cooperative tone, they gently drop this line. That does sound rough. So, what's your plan to fix it? Don't underestimate this question. It hits harder than you'd think. It immediately cuts off the emotional flow the other person had going and forces the logical, thinking part of their brain to switch on. At this point, there are two options. One, if they genuinely want to solve it, they're forced to stop complaining and actually think. Two, they get caught off guard and stammer something like, well, I don't know, what else can I do? And quietly back off. Because deep down they know that standing in front of you, this endless complaining game is officially sold out. Method 5. Don't take criticism personally. This might be the tactic that demands the most mental clarity, but once you master it, you'll find an incredible sense of inner peace. Whenever someone points a finger at you and throws out something like, Why are you always so slow? Or, you're such a selfish person. What's your natural gut reaction? Blood rushes to your head. Your pride takes a hit, and right away this frustrated voice pops up in your mind. Am I really that bad? I have to argue back right now. But hold on a second. Psychology has a very common mechanism called projection. Here's the simple version. When someone is carrying around a lot of insecurity or flaws they're not brave enough to face within themselves, they tend to dump those negative feelings onto other people to feel better. Realistically speaking, those criticisms only reflect the insecurity of the person saying them. They're not a measure of your worth at all. Smart people are clear-headed enough not to foolishly turn themselves into a dumping ground for someone else's emotional mess. So instead of jumping up to argue back, smart people just tell themselves one thing. This isn't about me, this is their mess. Then they calmly respond, okay, noted, that's your view. See that? That calm, cool composure isn't them forcing themselves to hold back anger. It's simply that they're clear-headed enough to draw one firm line. Never take responsibility for cleaning up an insecurity you had no part in creating. Method 6. Set boundaries through action. We hear the phrase setting boundaries all the time, but honestly, most people are doing it wrong. The most common trap is thinking that setting a boundary means ordering people around or lecturing them, like saying, hey, don't talk to me in that tone, or you need to respect me. From a behavioral science lens, that's not a boundary at all. That's clearly just an attempt to control someone and force them to submit to what you want. And science has already proven this. You can never change someone who doesn't want to change themselves. Because we misunderstand what a boundary really is, we keep falling into the same loop. A real boundary was never about forbidding someone else from doing something. It's 100% focused on you. What you're going to do when that boundary gets crossed. Smart people never waste time on empty threats or arguing about what's fair. They know that a warning with no real consequence behind it is just words in the wind. So instead, they lay out the consequence ahead of time and let their actions do the talking. Picture this. You're in the middle of a work conversation, and the other person starts raising their voice and getting impatient. What's most people's instinct here? To bristle up and snap back, hey, don't you dare yell at me. And what happens? No boundary gets set at all, just an explosive argument. A smart person handles it with a clear-headed, action-based formula instead. They lay out the consequence in one short, plain sentence. If you keep using this tone, I'm going to end this conversation right now. At this point, the ball is in the other person's court. If they keep right on raising their voice, a smart person doesn't say another word, doesn't over-explain. They simply follow through on the consequence they stated, they pack up and walk out of the room, or they flat out end the call. Here's the thing, actions always speak with a lot more weight than words. Once someone realizes that crossing the line will immediately cost them their access to you, no exceptions, no second chances, they'll have no choice but to adjust their behavior if they actually still want to work with you. Method 7. Choose peace over being right. Let's be honest, all of us have a little bit of that win-or-lose instinct built in. When something unreasonable happens, your ego starts screaming for justice, demanding the other person admit they're wrong or at least nod along to your argument. Sounds powerful, sure, but really you're just trying to find common ground with someone who's currently putting their own ego above the truth. Stubbornly arguing at that point is like talking to a brick wall. In modern psychology, there's a very practical concept called radical acceptance. Sounds technical, but simply put, it means this. You let go of the need to control how the conversation turns out. Acceptance here doesn't mean admitting you're wrong or that you're letting yourself lose. It just means quietly telling yourself, all right, their perspective right now only goes this far. No matter how sharp my arguments are, I can't change that. Smart people are great at calculating the economics of their own energy. They know full well that fighting to the bitter end in a hopeless argument is a losing bet. No real payoff, just time and mental health going down the drain. So instead of digging up a pile of evidence to keep defending themselves, they choose one short, polite closing line. It looks like we just see this completely differently. I respect your view, and I'm going to leave it here. They're perfectly happy to let the other person walk away with the winner trophy. Smart people don't need to argue just to stroke their own ego. Instead of burning themselves out over an endless fight, they walk away holding something far more valuable. A quiet, drama-free evening, a solid night's sleep, and all their energy saved up for the things in life that actually deserve it. Dealing with negative or manipulative people is never easy. Our brains are wired from way back to connect, to resolve conflict, and to seek harmony within the group. Because of this built-in survival instinct, the first few times you try out these tactics, like staying quiet, refusing to explain yourself, or firmly walking away, you'll almost certainly feel uneasy, guilty, or even judge yourself as someone who's just avoiding things. But I want you to really hold on to this. Standing up to protect your own mental space and emotional bandwidth is never selfish. It's the most basic responsibility you owe yourself. The truth is, you can't change how other people think, and you can't control how they act, but you have complete power over deciding who and what gets to affect your nervous system and your emotions. Not arguing doesn't mean you have no argument or that you lost. Not explaining yourself doesn't mean you're wrong. It only proves one thing. You value your mental health and your peace more than trying to change someone who never intended to change in the first place. And once this mindset really sinks in, you'll notice something amazing. Toxic people will completely lose their power and influence over you. Not because you beat them with logic, but because you simply refuse to play their game. I'm Dex. Out of the 7 tactics we just broke down today, which one feels like the biggest challenge for you to actually put into practice starting tomorrow? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd really love to hear your take. See you in the next psychology breakdown.